Greetings, peace, everyone. Greetings, peace, everyone. Greetings, Rahim. How are you? Brother Rahim, can you hear me? Just let me know if you can hear me. Um, because this is my first time starting a room inside of an actual, you know, account. I've started rooms before, but hmm. All right. So just let me know in the chat. I'm forgetting. I'm looking for feedback loud and clear. All right. All right. All right. Um, Let me see if I can get back to this. Okay. All right. So shalom, family. I see family members in the room. Give thanks for coming in and joining the space today. I've greeted you already, Brother Rahim. Greetings. I also see um, Iris, Sister Iris, greetings. Thank you for joining in. So today's midday affirmative um, really focuses on the idea of management. And so I called it Management Matters, not because I am an expert at management at all, but because I am willing, open, able, capable, and, you know, ready to learn but also share and have an exchange in this space around like just the value of management. And I was even thinking about how important you know how important the topic of simplicity is directly connected to management because it's kind of real simple you know and sometimes we do complicate things when it comes to thinking about management, right? Before I jump in and start sharing, I wanted to just share that Anu always has a new blog dropping. I like to say that dropping every first day of the strong. And so Sunday today, Yom Rishon, you can expect to, if you visit our website at www.anulifeglobal.org, you are expected to see a new blog, and that blog focuses on mental health, right? The mind. All right. And so it's called Safeguard Your Mind. So check it out. Check it out. Leave a comment, engage with the content to show that you like it. All right. So when we, when most of us hear the phrase money, not money, but management matters, I'm sure the first thing that pops into the mind is time, right? I think that's the very first thing when we hear about management, the first thing you hear is manage your time. And I know I'm not, I'm learning to strengthen my time management. But management management matters is really about managing all resources. So today we're talking about all types of resources. You can think about time, you could consider money, but I also consider relationships. Right? Relationships is a currency, I think. It's a resource. All right. Connections, which is directly related to relationships, right? Bonds. All right. That's a resource too. Emotions, gifts, which we can give to and share with others, the talents that we have, those are resources too that we can mismanage, right? Which is like waste. All right. So I also think that where we live, and who we engage with and how we engage, um, these are all connected to different types of resources that we manage. So today, again, our focus is to affirm that we act on the importance of management versus waste or ill handling of these gifts and this grace that the Most High has given to us. Because I think it's grace. It definitely is grace. Um, if if you, I'm inviting anyone who wants to jump in and share, speak. Let me know. Sometimes this is a little bit new. Okay, I see the green bar at the top. Let me see. Uh, how do I do that? Invite to speak. All right. Boom. That was easy. Hi. Welcome, Brother Zach, to the stage.
Greetings and salutations, Sister Moya,
But thank you. Greetings to you.
in Clubhouse Land. Yes. When you were just speaking, it made me think of, you know, the simplicity of managing when you said that is ultimately being able to walk away from things. Sometimes, one can mismanage the time from taking on too much. And no, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And instead of just saying, nah, you know what? In order for me to properly manage my time, I'm gonna have nah, there's some things that I can't do that. I'm sorry. I might have to disappoint some people, I might have to, you know, they might poke their lip out and hell on, man, you doing all yeah, but if I'm going to be good or of service to anybody, then I gotta make sure that I manage my time wisely. And ultimately that's when a lot of anxiety starts to get on people of, oh man, I wish I, and then those sayings of I wish I could clone myself, or if I can be in multiple places at once, then I can get all of this stuff done. And it's like, hold on, let's simplify some of this stuff. Do you really need to be in all of these places at once? So what is one trying to accomplish when they're trying to put more on their plate than ultimately that they can eat? And yeah, that's just one of the things that was popping in my head as you were speaking.
Right? As you shared, I thought of, not that I'm thinking while you're talking, but what came to mind was the idea of micromanagement as well too. It's almost like like you have to get your hands in everything without actually realizing that you we're being poured into, and we do have the creator is kind of orchestrating this journey. Of course, we have responsibilities as well, and that's why the conversation around management, because it is our responsibility. I think of, and time management is only one thing, and I think respecting, part of being able to manage time is respecting, yeah, what you can handle, what you can do. Um, Not just what you think you can do, but what you've shown and proven that you can do. Because I definitely think too, when it comes to resources of any kind, I mean, the first thing again most of us think about is time or money. But I all the resources we have in our gifts and our skills and the talents and our ability to speak, or our ability to create, all of these things are reservoirs. Um, Given to us by the Most High. And so when we mismanage or we waste those, um, I think it gets reduced, because you prove what you can do with a little. And then if you could do great things with a little, regardless again of what the resource is, then I think it naturally expands because you've proven, what you can do. So,
Right. And even, oh, I'm sorry, go.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, even on the micromanaging piece of now learning just to trust those who are around you that they can get the job done, and trusting that you don't have to be there. I don't have to. Let me see this. Let me see this. Let me see this. Let me see this. Nuh-uh. But just having some trust in those who are around you that you know what, that they can get the job done, and that they were shown properly how to do it, and either you can do it or you can't do it. And even when you just said, what made me think of, like, just somebody jumping up and saying I can do it. Well, hold on now, what have you show me some track record of something that you have done, or with the smaller little bit. Okay, let me give you a little bit, let me see how you handle it. Okay, let me give you a little bit more, let me see how you handle that. as opposed to somebody just jumping up. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And then now all of a sudden they putting the weight, all this proverbial weight of the world is on their shoulders because now you've lied on your resume, right? You done put down some things that, yeah, I can do all of this, but now I cannot be responsible or respond with ability to do whatever it is that I say I need to do. It's almost like, you know, me signing up to be a lifeguard and I can't swim, right? But I can do it. I can do it. I can learn. I can, you know, it ain't, yeah, yeah. I need resources. I need to get this. I need to get that, as opposed to taking the time to learn, you know, and hold on, let me get my stuff together before I just sign up to do something that I feel like I can't do. And now all of a sudden, I feel like I don't have any time. And I even think, well, before I go on, yeah, let me end it like that.
You will have mercy on those people who's going to be sitting at the beach waiting for a
Yeah.
lifeguard
Right.
person.
Good luck.
Yeah. Peace, everyone in the space. Um, yeah, a lot of things came to mind when you brought this up, Sister Maria. The topic of management. It it can like you shared, it can span across um a lot of different areas of life. A couple of things came to mind. One of the first things I thought of when you mentioned management of relationships, and I think Akizaki sort of touched on the point as well, is managing how you're perceived. And it brought to mind the segment that was done a few songs ago about caring too much. And you keep saying yes to things that you can't really sustain, but you keep saying yes because you don't like the feeling of what might happen if you do say no. You know, like Isaac said, you keep popping up. I could do it. Yeah, yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, that's fine. That's cool. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can pencil you in. You know, I'm not busy. You know, it becomes that sort of thing until it sort of spirals out of control, and you realize you're gonna have to fail at one of those things because you had no business accepting all of those contracts. You know, and like I said, you're trying to manage how you're perceived in a way because you don't want to deal with the reality that someone has the freedom to not like you for a while, and you have the freedom to not care. You know, it's ultimately like Isaac said, your time is very precious. You know, another thing that came to mind was the story in the New Covenant, and speaking about the parable of the sower. You know, Yahushua was just outlining that parable of, you know, you have one servant who got 1 talent, the next one got five, the next one got 10, you know, and based on their ability to manage what they had, you know, they were able to multiply it. And if they didn't have, you know, if those servants that did multiply it, if they didn't have the ability to effectively use their time and possibly even their relationships, they may have even delegated, you know, like Brother Doc had mentioned, they may have even delegated and said, okay, you know how to flip some money. So I'm going to invest in your business. You know, an investment has returns, as opposed to micromanaging, where you're trying to do every little thing, and that can stop you because if you think that, well, I can't do every little thing, so I'm not going to do anything. You know, so that ego sort of stops you in your tracks. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna start a business because I'm not all that good with money, or I'm not all that good with procurement and shopping. You know, I don't know the right tools to buy, or I can't build a house. So what do I know about a construction company? You know, those things help, but delegation and trust, those things, they assist you as well. You know, but if you're so encrusted and you're so used to your comfort zone, you know, or your own mismanagement of your own life, and you don't want to open yourself up to the fact that someone else may, you know, be able to guide you, then you know you plan yourself in a sense, you know. But yeah, those are some of the things that came to mind, and I'll put myself back on you. But yeah, give thanks for this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, coming on and sharing that knowledge and wisdom. You know, you literally pulled delegation straight out of my head, because there's when you talk about delegation, it is, we're still going back to managing and management, but it's about being able to decipher who you can hand off a portion of what you're responsible to accomplish. And there's this piece in Anui that speaks about self interdependency, but also saying it's like it's connecting the collective to the individual. And it kind of speaks to collective economics turning inward to self interdependency. So it's like, and self interdependency is like literally, I will say, it is, it's almost like the individual is not an individual because the individual is embedded in the whole. So that delegation is, I think, is crucial because it also speaks to the collective and an individual understanding that they're not separate from the body, but they're the body, because there are all these other components of the body. And I think an excellent example of that is when Hamashiach, um, what is the biblical reference? When Hamashiach feeds the 5,000 people with bread and fish, like talking about delegation, talking about assessing what's needed, and being in tune to know, okay, I could gather uh, my disciples, and not just share to the people, but share to them, and they in turn will share out and distribute. And I think it's verse 40 kind of says they sat down in ranks and hundreds and fifties. Like, that's, who doesn't imagine like a corporation or a company or movement, right? Like I knew, where they're just groups and groups and groups, and each group kind of has a station and so on. I think that's really important when we think about delegating. And the other piece to that story, I'm sure we're all familiar with it, so I don't think I need to recount it. But I don't know if someone could drop the biblical reference in the chat. I think it's Mark 6:40. Like, toward the end of that experience, right? I'm going to call it an experience. Many people call it the miracle of the fish and the bread and so on. But toward the end, we actually see the disciples picking up what was left over as well, right? So yet they feed all these people, and there are probably scraps left over, and it was just okay. It's just scraps in the wilderness, wherever. Let's just leave it. There was this diligent diligence when it comes to being wary of not being wasteful. All right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I literally see that as like respecting the resources that you're given. And even before breaking the bread and sharing to the disciples, we see Hamashiach actually, you know, give thanks to the Most High, or give thanks. Like, I think it says like he stares up to the heavens in a sense. So there's that again, that respect for the resource that you've been given and the source of the resource. All right, I'll pause. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in. I don't see hands.
I was just going. I don't know if Ross Kush, you wanted to speak before I.
Go ahead. You come back to me.
All right, I was just gonna say, even in the sense of being able to delegate, I look at Chief, who says, a coordinator, uh, and one being a coordinator, one would have to kind of know some things, right? Like, you would have to, you got to know your personnel, right? In a sense, whereas just like you said, one is not separate from the group, like they're not. Uh, so you're only as strong as your weakest link. Now, I look at it in a team sense. Let's say, football. You have 11 people on the field. Now, it's on a coach or coordinator to make sure that people are in proper positions that they can thrive in the best, right? So now you got to start to read them. You got to start to know strengths. You got to know their weaknesses. You got to know what some things that they might need to work on, some things that they need to improve on, and then put them in a position that they may not even see themselves. Like, hold on, man, I'm not. Nah, I see something, but again, a coordinator has to see some things. It has to have a vision. They can't only have knowledge of, these pieces, but some wisdom now to say, okay, let me see the best possible way that somebody can thrive and to, start to move forward in their purpose. Um, and I think if one is not placed, like you can't just start putting people in positions where now all of a sudden, somebody can't throw the ball, but I'm gonna put them at quarterback, right? But you don't have an arm. But I want it, and then they might say, "But I want to play," and I've always seen that, that's one of the great positions that have high reverence. Yeah, but that's not your position, right? You're gonna come over here and you're gonna play offensive line, but I don't want to block. I don't want to do that. Like I don't want to put my hand in the dirt. I don't want to get low. I want to get over here, right? But it's on a coordinated. Hold on now. I'm showing you now. Can you do it? Because now, and can you be open to different possibilities? Uh, and I think that even goes into not only just managing people and managing different, spirits and managing different personalities, which man become a juggling job in itself, which ultimately one starts to tip their hat to because people can wear you out. They can wear you out if you allow. If you allow. So yeah, I just wanted to add that into.
Peace, everyone. Yeah, so it's a good topic. Um, it's something that I thought about in the 14 keys, where it talks about, if we have like, self-definition, we know our own shape, then we don't infringe upon, the others, that we're working with. So I think that, knowing one's own shape, your own limitations, your strengths, your struggles, you know, um, plays a very important, factor in, being able to, work with others and make certain that you're in the correct position and you're not infringing on someone else's position, and you understand what their position is, and where they're supposed to be, so that you can, maybe help if they, are facing a struggle. Our relationships are supposed to be complementary, so therefore we're supposed to be able to ping off of each other, and, hey, you got someone your back, or hey, I see you're struggling with this, I can sympathize with your struggle, even though it may not be the same as mine. I might be strong at where you're challenged, and vice versa. You might be strong where I'm challenged, but we can work together and, achieve the mission, achieve the purpose, of us coming together. So I think that that's, real pertinent. And, oftentimes we see that. We see like even I'll give an example, like, we playing pickup basketball, at the gym, and there may be, one person who's very, very good, like they're real good. It seemed like, they never miss, right? Or seem like, they're real, real, real talented. And you have another team, you know, with average players, and the team with average players beat the team that is in essence, more talented, because they know how to work together. They know, this person can shoot, but maybe they can't dribble. This other person can dribble, but maybe they can't shoot. Maybe they can drive, so they use their advantages, at the correct times, you know. Whereas the, other team that's more talented, try and do it all themselves. Like, every person is an individual, and every person is trying to do everything themselves. And that easily gets shut down, because we're going to face adversity no matter how talented you are. You're going to face something that you struggle at, you know, no matter who it is that you are. If you're trying to do something of importance, you're going to face adversity. You're going to face some type of struggle, So I think it's very, very important, and know your role. Know, if you're the hand, you know, um, don't try and force yourself into the position of the foot. And if you're the foot, don't try and force yourself into the position of an arm, or a leg, because that's not your fit, you know. So you're just adding on extra adversity, and extra challenges, because you're trying to force, a square into or you're trying to force a hexagon into a square box. So that was something I wanted to share, and give thanks for the space.
Peace. I noticed Mark 6:30 was put into the chat. Is that and I'm just kind of resetting the room just to get a bead on, where we're pivoting on. Is that the text that we're bouncing off of?
Yes, greetings, Chief. Thank you for coming on to the stage. Yes, we're using that to pivot around the idea of delegation and showing how Hamashiach manages or is an example of management in that instance.
Oh, okay. Good, thanks.
All right. So, jumping in, greetings, Raheem. I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything, if you needed to a space to say something or to share, unmute your mic and jump in. So, you
Um,
know, yes.
I was gonna say greetings, and I was gonna say this topic is actually very potent to me because when we speak about management and delegation, when I first started playing basketball, like I had to learn how to manage my time because I was practicing like 5 days a week, right? And I had to start to learn how to manage my own body in a sense where I can't be over exaggerating myself, like over exhausting myself during the day, right? And now being a little bit older, being a little bit more into the sport now, but like 4 years now, now I can help manage the grade nines or the younger ones that are coming in, and also like um not only delegate but help share the roles and share the positions with them, and show them, like, like Rajklish was speaking about, sometimes you're on teams where they're not that good, right? But you guys know how to play together. You guys know how to share the ball together, and work together in order to win against a team that may be a little bit better than you, right? And it's all about how you manage your skills and you manage your time within that game, right? So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I just will add on too. Um, so if you're talking about management, coming from again the Mark 6:30, and like Brother Raheem was just saying, learning how to manage self is a critical part of that, because if you look further up in that chapter, um, one of the things that it speaks about is how Yeshua was first traveling. So when in the first verse where it says, "And he went out from thence, he cometh into his own country, and his disciples follow him." So actually, Mark 6 starts with that line, right? Which is kind of like the critical thing, because that's what Raheem was talking about. So when it says like he cometh into his own country, what that's saying is like coming into your own state of being. When you look at it beyond just the literal. So in order to manage, in order to take this five loaves of bread, two fish, and to manage all these people that were coming to him, first Yahushua had to go into his sacred space. So to come into your own country is analogous with coming into your own spiritual kingdom, and your kingdom is your sphere of domain where you control, which of course is your mind. So it's like meditating. So once I come into my own mind and I'm situated in within the power of myself, I'm situated inside of my own symbolic descriptions of what I am and how I regenerate, then I can easily now look at what's outside of me. So when he was around his disciples, he recognized that his disciples represent his internal spiritual abilities. Their disciples are disciplines. So each discipline, whether they be 12 or whatever, each discipline I have are portions of the universal mind. And when I came into my own country, it meant that I'm now operating out of the center of the universal mind. So all of these different people outside, quote unquote, are actually inside. So me feeding them doesn't necessarily just mean like I took a bunch of bread and cut it into little pieces, but I'm feeding the internal cell work on a molecular level as well as a spiritual level. So first, in order for that any of that to happen, there had to have been a grounding in Yeshua's own inner faculties, which requires a separation from the external. I think that's one of the critical things when you're speaking about delegation, because sometimes there's a lot of external chatter. You should be here, you should be there, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And I know definitely with like basketball, I was never really that good at basketball because of that one particular thing. It's just too much going on at one time for me. I always enjoyed boxing and I enjoyed wrestling because I got one guy to fight, and when I played football, I was on a line. I got one guy I got to hit, or one guy is going to try to hit me. Outside of that, I get confused. It's too much. I'm on a basketball thing. There's five people, then there's coaches screaming, and I used to get confused a lot. I had trouble separating the external chatter from my inner centering, and I never got good at it. I never mastered it or anything. I just played a different sport. I just started wrestling, and I was good with that. But that's really what that I would say it begins with. Even though we're not really necessarily talking about that scripture, but it leads into it, and it reminds us of the silence and the solitude that's required in order to delegate. And some people sometimes can't respect that too. Like, a lot of times leaders and bosses, they need to be away from everybody else. They can't eat lunch with you all the time, or go out to the bar with you and things like that, because in order for them not only to maintain respect with you, but in order for them to maintain true vision of your capabilities, they have to tap into your spiritual nature from the center of the universal mind. And they can't do that when they're surrounded by all of the primitive activities that go on outside of the self. So I would just add that in, man. It all begins with a personal and self grounding before you do anything outside of that.
Right. Thank you, Chief. So it that helps to reiterate by like that idea of management is so important. Because if we're going to do anything efficiently or even effectively, it really requires that tapping in to the internal, right? To even be aware of what resources are outside of us, so to speak, or in our natural environment, whether it's in people or just resources, time, money, all of that, all of those things are important. Um, and
I would say you already know the resources that are outside of you.
mm,
You don't, when you're managing, you don't want to look outside to figure out what's inside of a person. You want to look inside of yourself to figure out what's manifested on the outside. That's the science. So if you are a part of an organization or a movement, each individual within that movement, if they're truly a part of it, because not everybody always will be, but each individual represents a different inherent ability inside of you. So they become a part of your body. So if you're tapped into your own inherent faculties, then you will see those faculties manifest in those outside of you. You don't have to look at them to try to figure them out. Yeah, you could do like a skills matrix in an interview, and what are you good at, and you could do that, and sometimes that's helpful on a mundane level. But on a much deeper level, if you recognize everyone who shows up as a result of the command and order that you've put in place, and they're harmonizing with what's already inside of you, all you have to do is properly reach to your thoughts. And if you can reach your own thoughts and manage your own thoughts, then you can command those around you in a harmonious way, because they are your thought projections.
That sort of made me think of what was shared on the mix earlier today. You know, those clips on family and even the management of the home and the management of. I was speaking to someone and he was telling me that he has like 7 children, and I was like, that's a lot of people to that's a lot of people to keep track of. You know, they all have different personalities, they all want different things, you know, and some of them have different mothers, so that's another set of people to keep your eyes on. And while you were speaking it, I was wondering like what would make someone look outside of themselves. And what came to mind was that sort of mantra that's spoken of in Dune, where he's like, don't give in to fear. Fear is the mind killer. You know, you would only look outside of yourself if you think that what you need wasn't there. You know, that's what but that's what I, you know, had gleaned. Where's my precious? But that's what I had gleaned from what you were sharing. Give thanks for that.
Um, that actually reminded me of bringing it back to bringing it back to basketball. Like when I first started, or even my studies when I first started, I would look to other people to give me the answers, or like other people to do certain stuff on the court, like maybe like grab rebounds, or maybe be more aggressive, or for my studies study harder, or get certain answers by having conversations. When sometimes like Chief was saying, not sometimes, usually it's within you. So I had to look at myself and say, you know what, you're probably the strongest one on the court, you should be grabbing the most rebounds, or you're the one that wants to do the studies, somebody else is not gonna give you the answers you're looking for, right? And it's, and like Chief was saying, when that grounding of looking internally, and in that an internal strength, you start to really realize like um the assets that you do have outside of you, because you have them within you. Like, you notice, okay, I might be a good passer, right? And then you try you do that in games, you do that in practice, and you see how other people on your team might start to be even better passer, because of the confidence that you were able to put into them through your passes, right? And I feel like that is one of the most powerful things to start realizing within yourselves, because you start to see how big of an influence you really are. Because a lot of us, including me, all used to think that like I was insignificant to the team, I wasn't that important or whatever. And you start to realize that you're no one link is bigger than the other, and that all links are very important, even within your side yourself. Like me and my smell, like we're talking about for on Tuesday, right? We're speaking about what's it called, the horizontal planes and the vertical planes coexisting, and how they work together. You start to realize even within yourself how, like Chief was just saying, when you start to manage your thoughts, right, or managing your actions, and seeing how they coexist, it allows you to start to create newer things that you couldn't maybe have done. Like, for instance, my game that I had, it was a very easy game that usually I would have found a lot more difficult, or came into the game a lot more I would say scared, right? And that those thoughts that I had in my head would torment me and make me end up playing a lot less aggressive, or a lot less just a lot more less of myself, right? And you start to push those thoughts away and see that maybe you can do better. And yeah.
So thank you for sharing. So there's as I'm thinking about what's being shared, and welcome to those who are just coming in. Today we're talking about management and why management matters, and we're not really just only talking about management of time or money or wealth, but all resources. And so earlier we spoke about emotions, gifts, talents, relationships. All of those things are a huge part of what we could consider resources. And thank you, Chief, for shifting the conversation, so that we kind of start thinking about um, not just what's outside of us, but self awareness, right? And that like looking internal to get a clearer understanding of. This is what you know, I started thinking about as I'm hearing you all share, getting a clear understanding of what's going on in our situational awareness based on that self awareness or that internal. As as we were sharing too, I started thinking about also. So there's a portion in Bereshit where it may be 2:4 in Genesis 2:4 where we see like so the Most High has not, or the Elohim have not necessarily created um, plants, or rain hasn't fallen yet, and it's like strategically because it says, I think 4 says there is no man to till the ground. And every time I for some reason I kept rereading that piece because what kept reverberating was the idea of tilling the ground is curating, is management. And so, it kind of shows how that's it's probably one of the core things that we're called to do, is to be able to manage. Um, Feel free to share and jump in.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, um, like on the flip side of that, when sometimes some people say, I just listen to myself, right? That's why all the answers are within. And I think that even goes back to what we was talking about on Shima, which the education and the training, right? Of that education being able to draw forth or pull out. And I think that even goes with, what Brother Raheem was talking about. When you're on a team, there's a reason why a coach is there, though. There's a reason why a coordinator is there to make sure that they draw out, the best in one, as opposed to, no, I can figure this out. I'm gonna figure this out. If you could figure it out, then you wouldn't need a coach, right? Or you wouldn't need like what is the point of being connected to everybody? I mean, and having all these people down here. And I think and even coming into sports or even dealing with people per se, uh, is just being able to slow things down. I think even, and I think that goes back to just going with the sports analogy of, not being confident in oneself or not being able to see everything and everything's moving a mile a minute. But, it's again, when one is confident in their ability and is pointed in the direction of, okay, this is some things you could work on, is able to help one slow things down where they're able to manage and command the things that are going on around them, because they're able to bring things to, not stop them per se, because I don't think anything is ever stopped, but slowing it down to a point where you're able to observe it, you're able to study it, and then you're able to understand it, to see how it can work for one's moving forward. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to add on to your point, when you're saying, slowing things down, it reminds me of the value of meditation, and um, meditation can really, really help, help a person slow their thoughts down, as Chief was talking about the chaos and clutter that happens, in the mind, when we are observing, our external situation, the things external to us. Sometimes things are seemingly, you know, moving 1,000 miles a second, 1,000 miles a minute, and we can get overwhelmed, and get become underconfident, in our own abilities, you know, um, as the brother Raheem was speaking on. So like being able to slow things down and manage our mind, our own mentality, you know, um, that definitely provides that strength and that security and stability to now be able to see what's really happening, you know, rather than being confused by the fear and having our thoughts going wayward. And where the mind goes, the body follows, you know. So if we allow our minds to be chaotic, then those who follow us will also be chaotic, you know, and therefore leading to failure. Everybody's in chaos. There's no ordering of creation, so and many times that leads to either um would you say something being created that was not intended, you know no matter if it's just a failure, or it's just not the intended result, and then many times that's usually something of consequence, rather than something of benefit. So I just wanted to um, add that to the cipher.
Yeah, I to add on to that as well, you know, the dangers of not managing your thoughts is you don't know which thoughts came from outside and which thoughts are native to you after a while. Like even like with Aki Zach said, I'll listen to myself. It's like even those thoughts that you're listening to, are they really, something that's inspired from, from within? Is that part of your education or is that part of your training? Was it drawn forth or is it like a sleeper agent, that was deposited into you and you didn't realize it because you don't manage your internal space, like thinking about with Yahushai, if there was a issue with a woman who had an issue with blood, you know, and she touched him and he felt power leave him. And he was like, who touched me? And everybody's like, you in a crowd. What are you talking about? Who touched me? It's like, nah, one of y'all, one of y'all took some power. You know what I mean? But just being so aware of what's going on in your internal space that you know a foreign thought, you know, when it rears its head, and what's native to you and what carries you towards your purpose versus something that you may have um, concocted based on what you hear around you, or again looking at the outside, trying to draw strength from the outside. So I that's what that sparked in my mind as you brothers were speaking.
Yeah, I would speak also in regards to that. Like there was Sister Moreyah had brought up Genesis 2 and 5, right? And no plant of the field was yet in the earth, and no herb of the field had yet sprung up, for Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. That's also indicative of what's being spoken about in terms of like the self-awareness, because rain, yeah, we can look at it as like management, like somebody has to manage the ground, but um again, it's Hebrew, so there's four different meanings or more, for one particular phrase, but um the earth is always gonna be kind of leaning towards the idea, or could be leaning towards the idea of a physical consciousness, or being conscious of the body, having a corporeal consciousness. And that concept of rain often can be interpreted as, divine thoughts manifesting themselves. So it's like when the rain comes, when the divine energy comes from the unseen, or the Shemayim, or the heavens, then what happens in that moment is that thoughts from the heavens, they descend down into the earth and they manifest into something, whether it's a lake or a stream, or it helps something to grow, regardless of what it is. These are divine thoughts. But when it says that, there was not a man to till the ground, you know, part of the speaking of that is like, when you're tilling the ground, you're cultivating the mind so that it can receive something. So it's almost like going from boys to men, or girl to woman. I can't give you certain things yet, because you haven't seasoned and cultivated your mind to receive it. Because again, if we look at the ground itself, the ground being a consciousness of, you have the earth, of course, but then you have the ground being sort of a consciousness of mind, right? So if you haven't tilled your mind, you haven't cultivated your mind. So the ground itself is not holy as of yet. So therefore, I cannot send down divine thoughts to you. There's no point in sending divine thoughts to you, because you ain't gonna get it anyway. So I think that's a large part of understanding what management is. Um, but understanding, when you come into a place of management, or you come into a place of receiving those divine blessings, that your mind has to be shaped towards it, and not everyone's mind is shaped towards it. This is one of the values and the power of having a ruler, a king, a chief, a pharaoh, whatever word you want to use, or N, or NC, or Lugal. These are individuals who have had their minds, their divine minds, cultivated for the reception of divine rain. And it's because of their reception of the divine rain that they can now share, they can spread consciousness. So I think that's a big part of it, especially when we talk about the dangers of self idolatry. When it's like, well, I just listen to myself. But has your mind been cultivated? Because it's not really yourself per se you're listening to, it's a stream of consciousness that's coming through rain. But has your mind been cultivated to receive said rain, or is it just dripping off of you, going somewhere else? Or are you not receiving it at all? Because the Most High is not wasteful. If you can't take it, you ain't gonna get it. Even though you may think you're getting it, you just make it up. You fake it. You know. So just wanted to share that part.
Thank you, Chief, because I actually uh, quoted, and I think I said nothing was growing. So thank you for that. But also thank you for um, like that clarity on how important it is to, you know, if we're talking about management, to really recognize that, yeah, that if we're missing it, and in many instances, like I am that person who, is in the position, or maybe in a position of missing what is being poured down into me, or being poured into me and given. Yeah, and I think we mentioned that early on in the conversation. It's the management versus waste, in a sense, and so it's one or the other. And so anything to the glory of the Most High is always toward management versus waste. So thank you for that. I think oh, Brother Zach, sorry.
I'm about to say, all right, I don't know what he went here, but go ahead.
Victoria, she's there.
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. All right, it's your world.
Peace. Yeah, I just was I'm kind of just like I don't want to say stuck, but just thinking about the delegation aspect of management. Um, I'm learning that um things about myself and like other people, and I'm realizing like that value of others and just having a respect for people. Just those simple things is important because um when it comes to like delegating, realizing that others are capable of doing what you're doing and putting your ego aside and looking at like they actually may even be do it better than you can, and also like they may exceed your expectations, and even in saying that like exceed your expectations is like okay, like why do you have expectations of others, so I just like I can just see like the ego in that. And also like I find that it's important to take the time to explain a task to someone else, and like it's poor management to try to do everything by yourself because you're not like outsourcing and you're not utilizing your resources, and humans and other people are resources. And I think that when the ego is present, you can hinder what something can be, or how a project can turn out, or how a task can turn out, because you're not valuing what the other person can bring and how they can enhance um, the experience, or the outcome of a certain project. And so that's something that I you know learning and looking at, and realizing and seeing um as I'm practicing delegation. So give thanks for this topic.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on the stage and sharing. Um, yeah, I think that was also a point that was brought up much earlier, the value of delegating. And I think it brings us to, like considering roles and, like understanding what our roles are, but also purpose and what our work is, because many times that's kind of like what that may be what um, drives us in a sense. But I think our role is important and many times directly connected to, as you said, like how a person can enhance a project, or any sort of collaborative um, project or task, or anything. So I think, and it goes back to too that internal management. I just wonder too, and I start thinking about. I think maybe it was a point made earlier, whether you know it's it's a fallacy to think, okay, well, I can do these things, and yeah, maybe I can say internally I can do this thing or that thing, but the truth is, we don't have the tools to be able to accomplish what like we said, we put our minds to, but we weren't given that gift, so to speak. So
I think it's important that you start looking at delegation as like a formula. There's a time where it has to be activated. Essentially, when you have a certain amount of responsibilities and those become greater than your capacities, and you start to look at, okay, once that happens, where I'm looking at how I'm managing my time, how I'm managing my energy rations, how I'm managing my own abilities. These are the things that would kind of fall into my capacity. Once my responsibilities become greater than that, then delegation becomes something that I have to look at. But I think what's also important in delegation is that um, when you're entrusting a particular thing to someone, sometimes a large part of delegation is empowerment. So it's to just say, hey, go do this. sometimes it's not enough, and sometimes that's where the frustration is with people when we don't delegate, because we might have to walk someone through doing something. And we might say, well, heck, it took me an hour to sit and teach somebody how to do something that I could have done in like 15, 20 minutes. And sometimes as a result, or because we're thinking like that, we're not necessarily thinking about the long term benefits of, well, now they know how to do it. So next time it comes up, it won't take that 20 minutes from me to do it next time. But when we lack that level of confidence in other people, sometimes it's because we haven't empowered them in order to do a particular thing, or we're not living within reality. But delegation within itself is a trust. And in order to trust someone, you know we have to we got to observe them, and it's because there's different type of people that we may delegate certain things to. There's people who may show a certain potential. I know within our new, a lot of the delegation that I do is based on potential. It's not based on what a person is proven, because I like to throw people into the deep end, especially if they say something to me. Like, I remember one time somebody pointing out a typo in a newsletter. That's when I was doing all the newsletters, and I was like, "All right, cool. Well, you do the newsletters from now on." And she ended up doing newsletters after that. So um, if a person kind of hints towards, well, let me proofread it for you. No, if you really gonna help, this is how you really can help. Do this if you're that concerned about it. Because I got other things I need to be doing. But you may not have proven to me that that is something that you could do. In fact, this person was still, there were typos all over their newsletters. you know. So there's sometimes you have people who you'll delegate things to because there's a certain potential there, and maybe you're trying to see if they can rise above their weaknesses and kind of focusing on their strengths. But then there might be other people who are progressing with a certain movement, with a certain kind of energy, and you see, yeah, I've given them some things and they've been able to get them done, and maybe they're ready now for something bigger. And then there's those who have proven themselves, you know and so delegation to them is much different, because they're leaders at that point. Once they've proven themselves, okay, this is a leader, so delegating to them is it doesn't require the same level of risk negotiation as I would with someone who has the potential to do something. But um there's a process to delegation that I think sometimes when we don't follow it, it makes the whole area a little bit more confusing. It makes it a little bit more scarier. Sometimes when we delegate things, we don't even know what needs to be done. There could have been something that we were doing for a long time and we didn't even document it ourselves. So we don't really know the steps. So, understanding what needs to be done is a part of delegation. And sometimes that requires a systematizing of the things that we've done up to that point. Then we have to select, you know, the people who we can entrust that thing to, in the most intelligent way. And there has to be clarity. Sometimes clarity is difficult for people. We may have a certain thing we want done, but we don't know when we want it done. We don't know how we want it done. We're not really clear on the results. We're not really clear on the methods that we want used. We haven't really mapped out any pitfalls as to where it might go left. We don't really have any guidelines or anything like that. Then sometimes we don't want people to learn from our mistakes, so we don't tell them, I did this, I did that, I did that, and it went this way. So, you know or this person did this, that, and that, so you can learn from my mistakes, their mistakes. Sometimes we haven't established accountability in our delegation, or how we're actually evaluate what the person does. Sometimes we don't identify resources for the person. Where can you go for technical resources to get this done, or organizational resources to get this done, or any kind of human resources even that you need to draw from. And then establishing some level of consequence, as to, if you don't get it done by this time or whatever, this is what's going to happen to get it done this way. So sometimes our delegation is extremely sloppy because we haven't established rules first. We haven't really thought about what it is that we want to do, and we don't understand that in order to delegate, you have to empower. and we skip that part and just say just do this, and then when it doesn't go right, we say, well, see, that's why I'd rather just do it myself. We kind of fall back into that way of thinking.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay. Okay. In Precious, you in here? I didn't want to. Did you want to say something before?
No, no, go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So that was just making me, sometimes one, uh, doesn't of the trepidation of delegating, and it made me think of what was said prior. Chief was talking about you know, of one and the water, the rain, and the streams of cognition, and one maybe skipping steps is what I started thinking about. Of a 5-year old is not going to take an SAT, right? Now, if one wants to just skip and doesn't learn the basics of things for themselves, um, then it becomes a little hard. Well, it would become difficult to delegate because what steps have you taken yourself that you can start to now either help somebody and say, "Yep, this is how it's done," or now it's like go do it. But then when they come back and say, "Well, this is what I'm doing, and this is some of the challenges and the problems that I'm running into," and then there's no answer for them because now one has skipped steps and doesn't really know how to help them. So now it's like this is why, or one of the reasons why I would think somebody would say, "This is why I just do it myself," right? Because you don't have an answer for them. You can't help them out. You can't because you skipped. And because you skipped and you don't know a basic addition and subtraction, and you're trying to delegate to somebody trigonometry, but you don't know it yourself. So are you going to admit you don't know it yourself? Are you going to go back and say, hold on now, let me make sure I get this so that therefore I'm able to teach a man to fish as opposed to giving a man a fish? I'm going to just give it to you so that now I can free up some more of my other time to do other things as opposed to now just making sure I'm the one that has to make sure everything gets done. I'm the one that, even though maybe I'm overwhelmed because I don't really know how they're supposed to get done. So yeah, that just crossed my mind as speaking.
Um, I would like to say that also makes me think about like when we keep talking about the divine rain or that water or that rain coming down. It's like putting a bucket outside with a hole in the middle of it, and thinking, okay, I'm just gonna sit here and let it catch rain and then empty it out as it gets halfway, instead of patching up that hole and allowing that bucket to fully catch all the water that it possibly can, and then dumping it out and doing your due diligence before wasting time, right? Because like you're saying, not covering all bases, that's just a waste of time. That's all you're really doing, because at the end of the day, it's going to come back and it might fail. So instead of taking the time prior to putting that out there to manage it and make sure that everything that needs to be done is executed correctly, right? So that you can have a successful outcome, instead of having to go over it again and then blame.
Oh, I read that. Okay, that's what happens when there's an incoming call, so we can move seamlessly into email precious, unless Raheem is back.
Sorry, yeah, I got it.
Okay.
What I was saying was, yeah, just patching that hole, right? You could have a extremely big container, right? That could contain a lot of really healthy rainwater that you could use to drink later or whatever, or wash your hair or whatever the case may be. But you have 5 different holes in it, and they could easily be patched up. You could do, there's different ways to patch holes. You can do so much different things to to make sure that that doesn't come or that doesn't happen, but you choose to put it out anyways, right? So that's kind of what I got from what Brother Zach and Chief was saying.
Greetings. Thank you for the
Mhm.
theme. Greetings. I guess something that I thought about, or that kind of came to mind, and when listening to the build so far. And I know for the most part, the narrative seems, at least from my perspective, to be on the leader, right? And making the decisions as to how to manage or how to delegate. But something that Aki Zach touched on, and I think it might have been Chief and Achoti Moreyah as well, what is the theme of what one wants to do. So if I'm, being charged with taking on an initiative, or, I'm viewed as having the potential to do something. I know in Aki Zach's example, with football, it's like, well, he might not have said quarterback, but the only position I know is quarterback. So it's like I want to be the quarterback. I want to be the one that everyone gets to see. And not necessarily, he said something about the person with the hands on the ground. Um, I want to be the one in the front. But when I think about my roles as a leader, even just professionally, the idea of how many unsung heroes, unrecognized, you know, truly committed there are. When I think about healthcare, and the nurses and the physicians were really touted as being the frontline staff, but only if you were within the system of care would you recognize that, well, none of that is possible without housekeeping, who was the most, instrumental in ensuring infection control, or or the dietary, who made sure that there was food not just for patients but also for staff. There are so many layers, and a lot of times we want to serve in those positions, but even in serving, it's like unrecognized, so just, I guess, maybe flipping it and looking from a different perspective. There isn't always that clamoring for wanting to be in the front, but sometimes after a while, if you're not recognized, acknowledged, or sometimes just shown gratitude, I guess that would be the best way. um One can grow weary of being in that behind the scenes position. So it might seem like maybe it's not connected, but that was where my head was going with the discussion, that there is another piece behind that veil.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I think it directly connects to, I think there's a direct connection to, you know, seeing value in one's role, and what we do bring to a community when it comes to that management. And I think it probably even goes back to recognizing, being able to, the control, that internal control, and that managing our internal, because then maybe external praise doesn't become necessary at all. Especially if you know that what it is that you have, whether it's gift, talents, or um, just the role that you've been delegates to, or the role that you've taken up, is fulfilled to the glory of the Most High, right? So it's not about you, but it's about you fulfilling a role that maybe even Yah has purposed you with. So it becomes bigger than the role, or even bigger than yourself. You know.
Yes, that's, as you're sharing, I'm thinking of this within community. And no, there isn't necessarily the desire, or, nor should there be the expectation of like public acknowledgement. Um and so I'm thinking of the retreat, and like how you, I think we all observed little things being done by each and every one of us on the retreat that wasn't necessarily, it was just what needed to happen in the moment, whether it was fishing items out of the river because someone's children might have thrown some things in there, or just be checking on the youth, or checking on the status of what was needed in the restrooms, or what have you. there isn't necessarily a need for an acknowledgement. But I think when you, if you're in a space where there isn't a commitment to everyone rolling up their sleeves and doing based on what the charge is in the moment, and a lot of that can be more so based on being in tune with the needs of your community, or as you're being instructed by Yah, or based on the light that's reflected and then expected of you based on your head. If you don't have that, if you're not governed by that, then there may be that desire for, like what Zach was saying earlier, you know, well, I want to have this position because this looks like the best position. But similar to what Chief is saying, there's so much that goes into making a decision about delegating. And if that isn't done right, if the person passing the responsibility or the expectation over isn't passing it with the right parameters, um, then it can be a setup for a major, challenge for the person who really is given an opportunity to step up. So, yeah, yeah. Peace, Saf Darlene.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for this subject. It's something that I'm actually face to face with at this time. You know, until you actually have the ability to manage your own time and you're not obligated to other things, you take it for granted, and how that's to be done. I really appreciated when Chief mentioned about the cultivation of the soil, because first of all, you have to be in a place where, well, at least this is what I'm learning for myself, that where the soil has been tilled. You have a desire to learn, you have a desire to understand the needs of the community and to see where you fit in. And all that, for me, has been, I've gotten a lot of information of things I was so unaware of before I came into, excuse me, excuse me, before I came into community. So at this point, having a community that can help to support you in tilling that soil, learning the things that you need to know to be a part of the community. In the 14 Keys in Ujima, where it talks about collective work and responsibility, calls for compassion of the highest order, but it talks about how the best self preservation that one could achieve is the preservation that comes at the beset of the group. So being in a community where you've got others that are noticing your strengths and your weaknesses, and being able to say, maybe you need to learn this, maybe you need to learn that. But again, having that self awareness and doing that self assessment, and being able to, I believe, Master Menelek spoke on meditation, being able to connect with your inner self and actually look at the things you're capable of and you're not, and then being willing to learn and become capable. So yeah, I just really appreciate the subject, because for me, everything is starting with managing self first, and then it leads into managing time and being able to connect with those things that are going to benefit the community as a whole. So I just wanted to share that.
That really brings me to like the homestead and growing crops and the constant maintenance of just upkeeping what it is that you're growing. For instance, maybe your children or your wife or whatever it is for you, right? It's the constant maintenance and the constant delegation of not only not only activities or things to do, but seeds, like ideas and thoughts that can sprout into new things and grow into things that could one day help the family or the crops. So I want to give thanks for that.
something you said, Aki Rahim, a little.
Pardon, you're breaking up. We can't hear you.
How is it now? Is it better?
Much better. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but you were speaking about, trying to catch rain, and there's a bucket with holes in it, and it made me think of, we were speaking earlier about, I think Aki Zach brought it up with, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that, but sometimes we can do it, and we say we can't, and that again is the fear thing popping up to you have the potential, like Chief had said, the potential is there, but you're actively denying the potential. You know, um, Similar to that servant who buried the talent instead of multiplying it. They were so busy looking outside and seeing what other people do or how other people are. They didn't look at what was in their hands. The management speaks to handling something for your hands. So they didn't look at what they were handling, and sometimes we mishandle ourselves like that, and we can mishandle people. They have the potential, but we mismanage them because we're not giving them like respect. It's we're not seeing the source in others. We're not seeing the source in ourselves in certain moments. So that was something I wanted to share based on what you brought up about the holy bucket.
I think
Anyone?
that I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
Go ahead, Chief.
I was saying I think it's important too when you're looking at those water references, like the rain references that you're speaking about, is that there was water. They didn't necessarily have to be rain. There was water that was already coming up from the ground. So of course in scripture it says that it's a mist, but that's never been a totally accurate translation. It would probably be closer to like a dew. Really, the word would be spring. There's a spring that came up from the ground. But what's where scholars have debated is like how could one spring water the entire planet, right? But so it could be springs, but nonetheless, there was water coming up from inside of the earth. Now, some could say that those were coming up from the hollow caverns that exist within the earth. If we are following the hollow earth theory, that there were caverns already, and that water coming up through the surface in that sense would most likely represent some level of resurrected knowledge, resurrected information. You think about even the stories of the woman at the well, where she goes and she gets water from the well and brings it to the elders. Like there's often these stories of going into a well, going down deep to get water to bring it up, as opposed to it coming on high. So it's saying that the wisdom is already there, the knowledge is there, the divine spirit is already there. But it's like in Noah's time, when Noah was building the ark, one of the things that was specified is that what was coming was something that the people had never seen. And of course what the people had never seen was water coming from the sky. Well, actually it was things not seen as yet was the phrase that was used. I think that was Hebrews chapter 11. Things not seen as yet, right? So because we're used to our information coming from one direction or coming one kind of way, and we disregard it, it springs up from the ground. Which really means it's springing up from the beings. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't take us too far left. There are beings inside of the earth. There are beings inside of the earth, and the water that was coming up at that time that wasn't coming from the dome or the canopy, which people got a glimpse of when they saw the rainbow after the flood. The rainbow was just light refracting off the firmament. It was, which we get to see sometimes too today. Like when we see a rainbow, we get to see, oh, that's actually the dome that we're inside of. That's the firmament. But for that canopy to have to be collapsed and water let in, that was only because people were disregarding the potential of wisdom that was already being given to them by way of that spring, or what some would call a dew. And you see the perfect balancing and the respecting of that even in the trees, and in the plant life, where they would the plant life to this day, it balances the depositing of that vapor, between cooler objects and warmer objects, and it creates that dew, or that dew of moisture, uh, where the vegetation it evaporates it into the air, and then it pulls it back down. So the vegetation itself is in balance with this mist, if you will, or the spring that comes up from the earth. But it was man who was not in balance with the wisdom that was coming up from other entities, we'll say. So I think that's important when you think about the if you think about the rain, just think about that the rain is a result of disrespect. There didn't have to be rain. We could have still been having that level of divine contact with those entities before they became the Nephilim that tried to, enslave us and all these other things like that later on. But there was a balance that was required, or that respecting of what was swelling up from the ground that was not respected. So it had to come in a much heavier and intense way. And it's kind of just a foreshadowing of, sometimes you get a light message or you get a soft protocol, you don't pay attention, and then I got to say it a little bit louder, so you're listening.
Yeah, that reminds me of what you were saying earlier about you know, making sure that you're actually able to receive what it is that's being given. And I don't know, it also makes me think of how you can't necessarily um tell someone, like people would say, like, give it to me, chief, I can take it. And it's like, I would give it to you if I could, but you can't take it, and that's where the humility comes in. And like the brothers were speaking about education on Shima a few nights ago, and you had often said that the best way to learn something, more thoroughly is to teach it as well. So even in the teaching, your mind becomes more receptive, because you're like, oh, okay, this person thinks they got it, but they don't necessarily have it. I'll have to hold back. So do people have to hold back when they're speaking to me? It's a different level of approach that you have to life now, and you can even sort of manage your emotions better when you're listening, because you may be like, yeah, get to the point before, but now it's like, oh, I see that they're actually breaking it down, because I can't take like the straight and direct light right now. I'm going to have to, sit small and take the information in the way that this person is actually giving it to me. And that's where the trust comes in too. So it's trust on the delegator, and it's trust on the person who's being delegated to, that this person is giving me right direction.
And welcome to the stage, Sister Deidre. But like I wanted to say that piece on delegating, and how it connects to empowering, right? Delegating is empowering. It speaks to self actualization, right? And it probably goes back to that, the idea of teaching, taking a moment or pausing to teach, um, and to pour out or share what it is that you have with another, so that they can execute, um, properly. And I think that's the idea of support, right? That comes in there. That's makes a difference. When you speak to empowering or empowerment when it comes to management, um, is offering that support so that other person can actually realize what the potentials are. Peace. Give thanks for this topic. You took the words right out of my mouth because I did want to go back a little bit to empowerment. Um, just from the management perspective, it is important, like as Chief said, to empower those who you're delegating to, um, because it's kind of goes to that teach a man, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. And so that hour or 30 minutes or whatever it is that you spend like explaining like what needs to be done will save you time on the back end. So and I even had to do a little bit of that recently, and I realized like, well, I'll spend this time explaining how this goes, and then at the end it was like clear, like, okay, now I understand what has to happen. So moving forward, I know that the task will be done in the way that it was explained. And in then even in that, once you kind of get a groove going, you can even then find time to improve, right? Or evolve the task, so that um, you can continue to make it even better, whatever the end product is, whatever you're doing. So give thanks for that. I think that's a really important piece, about the empowerment. And also, like, I think in order for you know you to be able to empower, it's I forgot who said it earlier, but it making the reference to like knowing your own shape, right? So not just like, well, I'm going to give this, for someone to do and they should just do it. Like, know how you communicate, something to a person, because I've even had to check myself on, am I communicating this properly, so that we can figure out where the disconnect is so that we can get this done. So I think also, it's important that the manager know their shape, because that task that you're delegating to someone may also have come from someone else. So it's like, do you even understand what you're giving out? So making sure that you're understanding, like, kind of what your positioning is so that you can even be the best delegator. So give thanks. I'll mute out.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead, Chief.
You got it, brother.
Thank you, kindly. Thank you, kindly. Even when you just said that, it made me think of just being able to get past instant gratification. Of this has to be done now. This has to be, and a coordinator, or being able to delegate has to be able to has to have vision of the bigger picture, to be able to know now, you know what, some things we gotta walk a walk. I gotta walk you through this. All right, let's do it, because now I know I'm gonna have to go somewhere else, and you're gonna be here. And if you're gonna be here, then you're gonna have to know. And even if you have the potential to do it, you're gonna have to show me. And then I'm gonna be able to help you out. And even through that, it made me think of what even Emma Precious was speaking about. Of maybe somebody is not getting all of the glory of the nurse practitioner or whatever, the people who cleaning, but now it's like the person who's still going to acknowledge you, like, you're doing all right with this, all right, keep going. Yeah. So they're like, yeah, so they feel like a part of the team. Now I think also what should be that goes with that as well is, some people get so caught up on just wanting to be encouraged, right? Like, just encourage me, encourage me. When at the same time, some things need to be discouraged. Some things need to be negated. Like, hold on, no, that's not going to work, right? And I think that even goes again, that goes back to the coordinator. Even when you started speaking about the retreat, and everybody's doing all of these different things, that's only because of the head. And if the head is disorganized and everybody else can't be, have fun and frolic and do all of these other fishing and all of these other things, it's going to be some organized chaos. And it's like, some people might look at it and be like, but somebody just sitting there. There's somebody been putting out fires over here, putting them over here, making sure everybody is good. All right, now go back and play. All right, cool. To make sure that everybody is moving. And I think there's a lot that goes into, even though one be like, I want to delegate, I want to lead, I want to do this. There's a lot that goes into it. And I think it's what's this old saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown. All right. And be careful when somebody, oh no, I can do that. Yes, somebody's making it look easy because they're very good at what they do. They're very good at what they do. So take the time to just learn your role. Do whatever it is that you are asked or required to do. And you know what? Maybe you can expand that as you say, okay, you know what, I got this. Now what else is next? As opposed to just yeah, looking at that person and being like, nah, I want this. I want that. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, man. Give thanks. I mean, those are some critical things you just said, especially like the the requisition for praise. That always makes me sick whenever I hear people say that. Like every single time. You know, from even when my children used to say that. Well, why when we do something good, why you don't say nothing? You know, um, people who say that never recognize when they are being praised. You know, that's usually what that is. So it has to be 100% all the time, praise me, praise me, praise me, because of my insecurities. And the moment I have to critique something that you're doing, then now you're going to try to guilt me by saying, well, you know, there's not enough praise, you're not giving me enough praise. But that's a very weak thing, you know, to ask someone or to requisition someone that you're clearly at odds with to praise you anyway. It's just so weak, and it speaks to your upbringing. It goes so far back. When you hear certain phrases like that, it makes me sick to my stomach. As soon as I hear it, I already know how you were raised. I already know. You know, and I know that sounds very harsh based on what we're talking about, but you know, a lot of time, I mean, it is what it is. Um, but a lot of times we fall into certain traps. Like one of the words you used was like your role, knowing what your role is, and I think Sister Deidre did as well. Um, there's certain things that we need to like query ourselves of before we start out in certain directions, and that goes to the praise thing. You know, I've had people even within our new, and not only in our new, and like in other companies that I ran, that would say things like, you know, you never say anything I do is right, or you never approve any of my ideas. And there's sometimes I have to say, like, because all of your ideas suck. That's why. You don't you never come up with you haven't come up with one good idea. They all suck, right? And it doesn't mean that you don't have the potential to come up with a good idea. It's just that the trajectory that you're on is producing the same thing. And the critiques are trying to pull you from that trajectory, but you don't want to be pulled from that trajectory. So you just keep coming up with the same kind of things, and they're all a mismatch for what's happening in that space. So sometimes one of the key things you have to ask yourself is like, how do I define my role in this space? You know, that's a part of delegating, you know, self-delegating, self-leadership, but also like, what is my personal vision for what leadership is? And how do I see myself contributing to the motivation and the change within this space? You know, and one of the I think the key things too, again, when you both spoke about roles is, you know, and these are things like a person could sit down and write down on a piece of paper. Like, what are my essential beliefs and principles that are vital that I hold on to, and how do those things impact my ability to lead? You know, like um I was watching an interview recently with someone, and he was asked if he's a pastor, and he was asked if he would ever vote for like a president who was an atheist, and he said no, I definitely would not. Right, but a question he was asked right before that was about affirmative action. Did he believe in affirmative action? He said, I believe that the right person for the job should get the job. But then if it comes to someone being an atheist, no, I wouldn't vote for the atheist, right? So I'm not disputing it either way, but clearly sometimes our critical principles and our critical beliefs will impact our ability to lead ourselves and our ability to lead others, which impacts how we will manage and delegate things. You know, it's always important to ask ourselves, like, how do we encourage people? You know, if we are going to tell a person that they did something well, how do we tell them that at the end of the day? You know, like for me, I tell people they did well all the time, but I don't say it in those words. A lot of times my telling you that you did well is still allowing you to be around despite all your screw ups, despite me knowing all your vices and all your addictions and all your lying and all your dysfunction and all your character defects, I still allow you to be in this space to keep learning and growing. That's me telling you you're doing well. Keep working on it. I shouldn't have to say it, right? But you have to be tuned into your own language and understand like how you give or you demonstrate, I should say, compassion and respect in that regard. So you got to know your style of delegation and your style of leadership and how you're going to affirm people and even within those affirmations, like how much autonomy are you also going to give people. Another important thing to always kind of look at in like outlining your role, and this is all internal questions, like so you because you're first delegating yourself. So you have to ask yourself like, how do I teach myself? Because the way I teach myself is the way I'm going to teach other people. And teaching is not just sitting down and reading a book or listening to a podcast. But how do I really teach myself? How do I prioritize my activities? How do I approach internal conflict? How do I respond to a mistake that I may make? Because how I respond to my own mistakes is going to be how I respond to others' mistakes. How do I approach problem solving? Like these are all critical things that you ask yourself, and it helps you to kind of like outline what my method of operation, my MO might be inside of a given space, and how I delegate, how I should delegate, and how I'm maybe being received. So I understand what the action is. And honestly, if some of those things you can even write down, you can show them to a person. Like, this is how I motivate, this is how I encourage, this is how I affirm, and this is how I approach conflict. you know so you may be looking at it one way and not realizing that I'm expressing this other thing, because my style has already been mapped out. I've already sat and asked myself the critical questions about myself that you're still trying to figure out, me being your leader or whatever else, your boss or whatever it is. So if you get an understanding of where I'm coming from in my shape, and the fact that I've invested some time into figuring out who I am, then maybe you'll be less impacted in a negative way when instruction comes down or delegation comes down, or like, Aki Zach was saying, needing that constant praise. When are you going to tell me I did something right? You might not realize I've been telling you, or that you shouldn't even look for that if you're really sincere about what you're doing.
That even made me think of when sometimes people get caught up in, you never tell me you love me. You never tell me, or whatever the case may be. But if you really, as you would often say, had ears to hear, when they just asked you, did you eat? They're telling you, did you give it? I give a crap about you, right? Just something, little small things that are telling you that this person is looking out for you. This person cares, right? Um, Something small. Hey, you're getting. Hey, put your seatbelt on. Right? Like I'm looking out for your well-being. But it's like it has to look like what somebody told me it's supposed to look like. Or that training. Somebody now has trained me to say that if it doesn't look like this, then I'm not being respected in this space. I'm not being appreciated in this space. I'm not being received in this space. No, no, no. You're just not learning in this space. You've been trained. And as opposed to now, if you open your eyes and you really see what's going on around you, you're seeing that people actually care. And people are not trying to give you a fish, they're trying to teach you how to fish. Are you willing and able and open to say, you know what, let me learn from the in this space so that therefore I can be the best that I can be, so that now I can give the best of me to the community, as opposed to me just trying to come in to see what I can get. Oh, tell me I did that. Tell me what I did to stroke my ego. So now, before anybody can even have a conversation with you, they have to stroke your ego before they can tell you something. I know you did this well, and I know that so and so said this, and I know so and so said that, but have you ever thought about it like this? You got to go through all of this laundry list of wearing somebody out before they can tell you, hey man, get your stuff together. Hey man, you F that up. Hey man, dude, that's all you do is, no, that's not all somebody does. That's all you choose to focus on. And if that's all you choose to focus on, then that's all you're going to see. But can you open up your vision? Can you open up your eyes to see really what's going on around you and see the beauty that's not only around you, but the beauty that's also ultimately within. So, yeah.
So thank you. Go ahead, Sister Shamanique.
Peace, everyone. Peace. Achoti Moreyah. Give thanks. I'm glad you brought that up, Akizak, because it's exactly what I was going to touch on, the love part. And sometimes I think that's a European concept to tell, to have to say, I love you every day. Like, I know for my parents, you know, they weren't saying I love you every day. And they weren't saying, like if I got an A on a report card or something, I'd always be looking for the praise, and they'll be like, "Where's the plus?" But even in them saying that, it is showing management and delegation because they know that I can achieve that. So that also is a form of love as well. And yeah, I had more to say, but I lost it. So thank you. Thanks.
It's funny as you were speaking, as I could hear there's this little quote or phrase, "You love me, you love me, you love me." I don't know if you all know it, but it's very annoying. It's very strange, but it reminded me of your statement. So it made me think. Your statement made me think of that silly thing where there's like that focus on the other person or anyone else outside of self. I So I didn't want to extend beyond the time. Well, there is no time. But if everyone has shared and there isn't anyone else who wants to share or even add on and extend the conversation, we can close. It is 1:47. I really appreciate everyone sharing and coming in and, you know, and the chief, the charge to, like pause and be conscientious. Think about, how do we teach ourselves and how do we respond to mistakes that we make. Um, it goes back to that original point that you made about like managing our internal, because if I'm able to manage my internal and effectively manage how I approach problem solving and how I teach myself, then when it comes to being able to empower somebody or delegate, the my steps would be ordered correctly in a sense because I'll be able to. I would have reflected on like what makes me tick or how I tick and understand that maybe another person doesn't learn in that way, and I would have to shift gears when imparting to another person or even delegating or more importantly I think empowering.
I did have a question I wanted to pose to the room. Just curious as to people's interpretation. It goes back to the Mark um, chapter and verse. When you look at Mark 6:35 and 6:36, and when the day was now far spent, his disciples came unto him and said, "This is a desert place, and now the time is far past. Send them away that we may go into the country round about and into the villages and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat." I was curious how people may have interpreted that.
All right, anyone wants to jump in and share? I'm like furiously looking for that piece in and if anyone has it and can copy paste put it in the chat, that would be good. It's so good that Clubhouse has a chat now, so you can add things. um so I'll read it again. Maybe that's helpful. It's helpful for me. I know. um hold on. And when the day was now far spent, his disciples came unto him and said, "This is a desert place, and now the time is far past. send them away that they may go into the country round about and into the villages and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat. What was it? Those two verses? I'm so sorry. I got nervous.
Yeah, it was just the two.
Okay.
Deidre says she has the
I
answer.
didn't say I have the answer. I said I didn't say I have the answer. I was gonna just like give like what I thought. Like, I have an answer. I don't know if it's the answer,
Well,
but
come on. I mean, I'm sure your Bengal and Bengals on your wrist will help out anyway. Let's hear it.
um, so like send them away. This is a desert place, so this place is it's dry. So like kind of pulling back to your example earlier about the water like coming up from the ground, like there's no wisdom, like they're going to have to go into the countryside, like where there's more fertile ground, and that's where they will find food. Like we can't keep expending energy in this space. We have to move them to, or they have to move to a more fertile place, or a place that has more wisdom, where they can kind of grow in that space. I don't know if that makes sense,
Mm,
but I'm gonna be out.
I don't know about that one.
I think
I
the
don't know.
All right.
Oh, let me say.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead. Whoever had it.
Go ahead, DJ Chamonix.
Mm,
yeah, thanks. I think the bread has to do with the word. So they have to venture out and spread the word that they've been given. So it was like Yahushua was delegating to the disciples to go and spread what he's already given to them.
mm.
Well,
All right. Take a stab at this joint.
okay.
All right. So it says, and when the day was now far spent, suggests to me that there's a lot of time that they were wasting. Uh, like what were they doing with all this time? And all of a sudden, the disciples came in and said, "This is a desert place." So it suggests to me that there's a lot of time that was wasted, and now they're starting to second guess what uh, what, why are we here? What are we doing here? What this is, there ain't nothing over here. But you don't know and you don't see what your teacher is doing, or you don't see why you're over here. Now it's just, I'm gonna start complaining. So it's like, man, send these cats, go on, send them on a mission, send them on, go do something in order to now, you got to build yourself up so that therefore, and maybe, you got to take a couple of shots, you got to take a couple bruises, um, to learn, and then come back to the, what does it say? Send them away that they may go into the country roundabout and into the villages and buy themselves bread. Yeah, just sending them on a mission, and feeding, but not necessarily bread. I would say like food for thought. So now you going to teach. Yeah, I'm reaching.
Mm. Well, the food for thought, I think, was a nice touch. I think that got us close. Go ahead, Master Menelec.
Yeah, when I heard you speak and you said it was a desert place, I thought about the wilderness and how Yahweh Shai would often go to the wilderness to like reduce his dependence on the flesh,
Hmm.
you know. And here it is now. They're all in the wilderness. I'm assuming it's like people from around who are like following them. And the disciples were saying, send them back, so they could get bread. I was thinking of it even in terms of like the fast that we're doing. You know, can these people fast as long as us, or do they have the stamina to stay out here that long? They may be getting hungry, or they may not be able to sustain themselves in this realm, as long as we can, or as long as you can. They're getting hungry. So why don't you send them away? But then I started thinking, like, why would they need to be sent away if they lack so much endurance, could they not endure it, or were the disciples like being condescending, or did they secretly want to go? Like I had all these questions.
Conspiracy.
Yeah.
Peace.
He, can I jump in, please? Go ahead,
Come
Deepa.
on, you said, can I jump in? What's happening?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought I heard someone else. I didn't want to cut off anyone. Um, I know earlier you broke down 6:1, and in speaking to 6:1, you mentioned um, Hamashiach came into his own country, and so you spoke of um, if willingly I'm not wrong, but you spoke of him being able to go internal and manage. And so I wonder if that's not related to pulling from that internal wellspring. And um, here in 35, the disciples are almost like disregarding that there is a wellspring there and available. And so instead of seeing that there is, even though the physical environment looks like a desert, there is a resource there that they're not regarding. And so they're kind of saying like, ain't nothing here. So send them off into um, the outer country where they're assuming or presuming that there is more value or more resources, as opposed to seeing that in that space there, um, there's a resource that they're not tapping into. And that's why I think the following verse, Hamashiach kind of says, like, give them to eat and give them something to eat. And they're still on, well, should we go buy something? Mm.
I would say that's to me personally, that's the closest to the right interpretation thus far. Let's see what Precious has.
Hold up.
I
Hold
mean,
up. Nah.
you said food for thought, brother. So you was in there. You added on. You know.
Yeah, I'm far from that ping on the map. So
Uh, okay.
so I'm gonna recalibrate my my coordinates.
Well, if you look at just the bulk of what Master Menelek put in the chat, right? Mark 6:30. I think if you read it a little bit before and after, you would have answered differently. And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Yeshua, and they told him all things, whatsoever they had done and whatsoever they had taught. And he saith unto them, come ye yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. And they went away in the boat to a desert place apart. And the people saw them going, and many knew them, and they ran together there on foot from all the cities and outwent them. And he came forth and saw a great multitude and had compassion on them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. And when the day was now far spent, his disciples came unto him and said, the place is desert, and the day is now far spent. Send them away that they may go into the country and villages round about and buy themselves somewhat to eat. But he answered and said unto them, give ye them to eat. And they said unto him, shall we go and buy 200 shillings worth of bread and give them to eat? And he said unto them, how many loaves have ye? Go and see. And when they knew, they say 5 and 2 fish. And then, it goes on to that, right? But I think just knowing that, we were focused on 35 and 36. And when the day was now far spent, his disciples came unto him and said, the place is desert, and the day is now far spent. Send them away that they may go into the country and villages round about and buy themselves somewhat to eat. So Master Menelek says something key. He cited the desert. This was a retreat that Yahshua had took the apostles on. They were on a retreat. He was like, "Yo, let's go get on this boat, go to the desert, and just like go relax." And even in the time when he was trying to go retreat, The people saw him and followed him. Like he couldn't even get a break then. And he ended up teaching them when he was supposed to be relaxing with his team, basically. But the desert itself represents, or often represents, I can't say it always represents because things change, right? But oftentimes the desert represents that space in our life when we can free ourselves from conscious thought, and active thought. So you'll see that fasting occurs in the desert. There's a sacredness about the desert where we go into, where we can be freed of the stress of life, and we can be freed of all the different things that may cause us strain, and we can allow a certain inactivity because there's also no rain that falls in the desert. So it's like just kind of having the potential to do anything. There's nothing in the way. There's no obstruction. It's all empty, if you will. So when he's like, let's go and take our leisure in the desert, he's like, let's let's be with the Most High, right? Let's be with the Most High where there's no human concern, where we can restore ourselves within the consciousness of the Most High inside of the desert. And them taking the boat, is like kind of, there's an optimism there. Like we're floating up on the water. We're floating above the water. Which goes back to the rain thing again. Like we're floating on top of the promises, or floating on top of the divine instruction. And the multitudes, I would say, are thoughts, are unbridled thoughts. That's why he was like, let's get into the desert where we don't have to worry about all this extra thinking and mentating and all of this stuff that stresses our brains out. Let's go into the desert. Because when he said, what was part? Oh, right. And he said, and he came forth and saw a great multitude, and he had compassion on them because they were as sheep, not having a shepherd. And he began teaching them many things. Okay, so the multitude there represented just like thoughts, thoughts that were not organized. They were not organized into concepts and ideas. So by him teaching them, because he's like, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. Okay, so that's like having a bunch of thoughts all over the place, but not having any kind of path of organization. So he began to teach them. And then when the day was far spent, and he's like, yo, this place is a desert, and the day is now far spent, send them away, you know, and it's right what Moreyah said. Like, why would we send them away when we have the potential to manipulate matter and substance through alchemical processes? So why would we send them somewhere to buy something when we can manipulate their very cellular structure? So we can take this 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish and manipulate reality so they think that they're eating a whole fish unto themselves, because that's the power that we have. So even when, if you read further down, like it says, and he commanded them that all should sit down by companies upon the green grass, and they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by fifties. So he's organizing thoughts. This goes back to managing and delegation. He organized the thoughts as to where they're supposed to be. Then it says, and he took the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed them and break the loaves and gave to the disciples. Looking up to heaven is what? I'm looking up to my first eye, to my pineal. I'm looking up and I'm using that to manipulate reality after I've once. So I'm organizing my thoughts under my first eye, as opposed to having them all scattered and all over the place like the multitudes who just follow me wherever I go, and I can't get a break from my own thoughts. Anytime I go to meditate, I'm just thinking about all these things that I want to be thinking about. All right, you know what? Let me take some time to sit and organize these thoughts. And then the bread and the fish, that represents the substance of potential, the energy that I can, Zach said it earlier, food for thought. I'm giving my thoughts food. So that's how I would interpret it. I'm not saying anybody else was off, but I think that might be a little closer to what we could work with.
And this is why it is important to get the full story. I swear to goodness, I only was looking at those couple sentences. But now that has been inculcated into the conversation. I'm gonna say definitely what you just said made me think of, sometimes people think that they need to eat 3 square meals a day and snacks all in between. And now someone, hold on, man, you don't need to eat that many times, right? Your body is actually better, even like in the sense of when in the Matrix, when my man was like, he was breathing hard when they were fighting. He's like, is that really air you're breathing? And it had one stop and think. But even now, looking at this place in the desert, it almost, I would look at that like ether, where a place where gods reside. So let's go, rejuvenate, get ourselves together. You can have a good time where you ain't constantly thinking that people are looking at you. You don't have to constantly look at them. And then now you're going to get, even in this space, get poured into, so that therefore now when you go back you have something of nutritional value. Because sometimes when you're just around people and you may be all out, like, I'm just out of game, man, I'm out I'm out of information, I don't know what else to tell you, I don't know what else to tell you at this point. Like, come on over here, I need some help with that. Oh, no worries, come on over here, I'm gonna pour into you, so that therefore now when you go back, now go feed the people and have them eat.
But notice that there still was no rest. Like what you're saying is right. You're absolutely right. But they still will follow. So you might go
Mm.
on a spiritual retreat thinking like, yeah, we all gonna relax together, and the people are only hungry for whatever. They ain't thinking about the fact that you need to relax, that you need to have your time to recoup and to regenerate. They don't care anything about that. All they care about is, I can't get my child to act right, my marriage is falling apart, my relationship with my parents is horrible, so forth and so on. And you represent nothing to me other than the solution. Not that you're another person living a human experience who needs to rest and to drink and to eat and recoup and everything like that. So I think this was like a good foreshadowing too for leaders in training to understand, like, the level of compassion that you may have towards the people is not usually reciprocated. So you have to establish hard protocols. Like people tell me all the time, like, Chief, is so hard to get in touch with you. Yeah, that's not accidental. I don't want to talk to everybody. I don't want to talk to too many people because it becomes very draining, and people don't respect the fact that they may say, like, well, I just need to talk to you for 15 minutes about something. But you know how many people want to talk to me for 15 minutes every day?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It fills up my entire day. And then what about my children? What about my consorts? What about me? Sometimes I need to talk to me and see what the heck is going on with me. So this was a good example of, like, they got on a boat. They're like, we gonna go on the boat and get away, and the people outwent them. Because, like, nah, we coming. So it also speaks to, like, if you have errant thoughts, you can't you can't outrun and out and escape your undisciplined and unbridled thoughts. They come with you wherever you go. Even if you try to bring yourself among those who may be righteous or whatever, that's not going to be a complete cure-all for what's going on inside of your head. So no matter where you go, you're still going to have to deal with yourself. I think this was a great foreshadowing. Anybody who knows that they're progressively moving into a place of leadership, that you have to you have to discipline yourself first. And most people don't understand that level of discipline at all. They don't know that, they don't even know that that process even exists. Most people think of the leaders, quote unquote, what they call the leadership, as people who just get to do what they want. Kind of like in a family. They look at, if we say, well, I knew it's patriarchal, it's like, oh, well, the men are just running everything. Well, it doesn't just mean that, because it's a serious thing to be responsible for another person. That other person only has to follow orders, but you got to come up with all the right ways to do things. That's a lot of work.
You better teach.
you know so people don't understand that being the boss means being the person with the greatest responsibility, the greatest headache. If something fails, people don't look at the membership, they look at you. There's been people who've come in and out of Anu that I maybe said 5 words to, and they had a problem with somebody else, not with me. and they leave, and people then say things to me or about me, and I don't even barely knew the person who came and left. You know, because when you're in that leadership position, you take ownership. So in that sense, the multitude that came, because if you notice, it said that the multitude recognized them. They knew them. So that means it wasn't just that the multitude recognized Yahushua, the multitude recognized the apostles as well. So these were their people, maybe some of their loose ends, but it was Yahushua that said, "Well, I'll teach them." So a lot of times, even as a leadership, you end up cleaning up for those who are under you. In that sense, the higher you go up, the more you're gonna have those responsibilities. So when did Yahushua rest? You know, we don't get any record of that.
As you were reading that first piece in what is it, verse 45, the word constraint, well, in my text, um that's what it is there, like constrained. I was like, oh wow. you know it's clear that there was a forcing, in a sense, and a quarantine. Like, I don't know, I saw the boat as quarantine. um but it sets us up for, when you say you don't even see where Yahusha rests, because from, I get this in the Greek Testament, this is, what is it, the 5,000 are fed, goes into straight into the other miracle of Hamashiach walking on water. So there are all of these, um, you know, I guess what we could say, tasks or workings that we see happening one after the other. And as you said, no rest, but we do see what scripture identifies as prayer, So, to a certain degree, yeah, there's resting in the desert, but I wonder what is imparted through what is identified here as prayer. And I think that's in verse 46, where it says, and when he had sent them away, he departed into a mountain to pray. So there's still that, I guess it goes back to when you're in leadership too, just recognizing when to put those barriers up or those walls up, and separate.
I think that even goes back to. I'm sorry. Were you?
Finished.
All right. uh, it goes back to what she was talking about a little bit of just not, as being a leader, just in a whatever you're in a job, or you can't be around people like that all the time, right? Because then they start to even have not, they start to really think that, oh, we all in the same, one in the same, right? Or they start trying to speak like as if they are on the same level. And it's just a good piece to just have one to read. One needs to recharge. One needs to. I need to get away from y'all, man. I can't, because sometimes it's like, yeah, all I hear is rap music or something going on in the background, and I'm not able to feed somebody. When now all of these different energies are coming at me in different angles, now I need to go up and make sure that it's like when somebody goes either up in a mountain or they go down and sink themselves in the bottom of a pool or something like that. Of just being able to drown out all of that outside noise, to be able to focus on the Most High, to be able to focus on that soft whisper that is coming on. But if you're right in the thick of it, 24/7 and always on the front line, then it's like I can't hear. And now we all gonna be in the same boat, and that's not going to be conducive, or it's not gonna be helpful for you. It's not gonna be helpful for me. That's not gonna be helpful for anybody. So it would definitely be, and when it comes to the ship was in the midst of wherever, I done lost it. But just going up into the mountains, make sure that that connection is still strong between one individual and the Most High. And even it makes me think of when in the beginning when Moses went up to the mountain, right? And there was a lot of times, some half of them was like, "Yo, you talk to them. I don't want to talk to them because I already knew they weren't listening. Like, I don't want that responsibility. I don't want that action, right?" But then all of a sudden, it does start to. Then it's questioned. But I should be able to hear though. I should, yeah. But you're gonna have to make is now that obedience piece that comes in now of being a coordinator or of being one that can delegate. You have to be obedient and you have to be strong in whatever it is that you're saying. I can't still be led by my lower nature, but then claim that I'm gonna start leading people because then it's like, now where are you leading them to? So yeah.
Thank you very much. And maybe that will be our last contribution for the day today. Um, I wanted to remind everyone that the volume 4 of the new blog is out. Please engage. Head on over to anulifeglobal.org and enjoy the blog. The focus is safeguard the mind, as this is mental health awareness month. So that particular piece was written and with everyone in mind, and keeping the mind balanced. So if there are no other shares, additional thoughts, anyone else wants to add to our conversation on management matters, we will close. And of course, I look forward to seeing everyone back here again next strong on Yom Rishon at 9 a.m. for not here, but head on over to Anu Radio rather for some, vibes, musical entertainment, enjoyment, and word songs from Chief and many other excerpts that are uplifting. And at midday, we have another session of our midday affirmative. So join us, connect, and if there are no other thoughts, we will close for the day. Peace, everyone.
Give
Peace, peace,
thanks.
everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Peace.
Give thanks.
And
Peace.
thank you, Chief. Thank you, thank you, thank you.